We have an awful lot to discuss in the next couple of days here at FII, and one of the areas, of course, that we're going to be hearing time and time again will be that wonderful hydrogen dilemma that we have. Are we going to do it? What colour we're going to do it? But we're going to talk about green hydrogen at this session. Eithne Treanor is my name. Let me get my panel up here because we have a lot to talk about, and they're the real experts in this. I can only ask them questions. Okay, let's see. The CEO of Hydrogen Europe joins me. Jorgo Chatzimarkakis, here we go.
Thank you.
Come on, guys, it's the afternoon.
Thank you.
From Marubeni Corporation, the General Manager, New Business Development, Wataru Ikushima. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. And I'm delighted to have with us the CEO from thyssenkrupp, Miguel Lopez. So, Miguel, thank you so much. Now, gentlemen, please. Make yourself comfortable. Oh, these seats are a little kind of comfortable, aren't they? Let me find a spot on this. I'd be in danger of nodding off if I sit back too much here. Okay, talk to me about what's going on here. We see a lot and we hear a lot about green hydrogen. Where are we going with it, Jorgo? It's in its infancy in some places. I suppose where you go, it's getting great support in Europe. A lot of talk about it there. But talk to me about, I suppose, the multiple factors that really need to be developed here, because we can't do one without the other. We have to have technology, demand and supply, infrastructure, investment. I get the feeling it's not all aligned right now.
Well, in your introduction, you talked about the hydrogen dilemma. We always have the chicken and egg dilemma in every new technology that we bring into markets. However, there's no question anymore whether hydrogen or not. When we listen to the energy minister today, when we listen to the governor, hydrogen was mentioned plenty of times. And it's not a secret that this place here, Saudi Arabia, is definitely one of the most attractive places to produce both green, and we don't talk about the color code anymore, and clean hydrogen.
Right.
We call it the end of the rainbow, and we know that both pathways are doable and are needed. But today we talk about the electrolytic hydrogen, which is based on electrolysis and uses basically renewable energy, and that's why it's a fantastic place. It's good to see that hydrogen's embedded systemically into this conference, and it's not a question of whether, it's a question of how, and that's what we're going to discuss here, I'm sure.
It is, how and when. Electrolytic, I get a new word at every session. That'll be my word of the day. Thank you for that one. Ikushima-san, talk to me about, when we look at demand, where do you see the market, where's the potential in the next, I suppose, 5 to 10 years when we look ahead to 2030 even and beyond, and particularly looking at it from Japan and from Asia. Where do you see the growth?
So the growth, I think, since in Japan and also in Korea, we have fortunately, unfortunately, lots of coal-fired plants, and they are still the base load, and also it's very difficult in Japan and Korea to expand renewable because of the land and also different many conditions. So I believe Japan and Korea will be one of the first ones to introduce green or clean hydrogen to coal-fired plants. But this is coal-firing for 20%, but this is only just a start. So the idea is to convert the whole coal-fired plants to ammonia in the end, using green hydrogen. So the other part is Europe and US, maybe mobility. I think for the regular automotives, it'll be maybe they'll be shifting to EVs. But for the trucks and big buses, I think FCBs have a big chance, and Marubeni is chasing opportunities for hydrogen trucks in Europe and US. There we also great need, we believe. Also Australia, we are chasing a green hydrogen project in Queensland. And one of the targets is to convert the green hydrogen to green ammonia and use it for explosion for the mining industry. So there are many potential markets for green hydrogen. Also, we can, if we make green hydrogen and make green ammonia, also for the bunkering. There's maybe bunkering, we have to compete against MCH or methanol. but many ship companies are seriously thinking to convert their engines to ammonia.
So the possibilities are endless out there. Miguel, I mean, there's a lot of interest, and many people, there are analysts out there that would say there's a lot of hype around what's happening in green hydrogen, and there's a few people who've told me that, we're never going to get there, but I'm in a room here and on a panel that says we're definitely on the right direction, and we look at, I think, the investment in Saudi and the investment hopefully to come. But many big projects have not really been delivered. You're a technology provider, you're also an off-taker, you're in a very sweet spot. Everybody will be chasing you. Talk to me about where do you think the opportunities are going to be, and what's the big stumbling blocks right now?
I think the idea has been how to now get green steel, just as from the off-taker perspective, how to get green steel into the supply chain and to the customers. And most recently, a couple of days ago, we signed an MOU with Volkswagen for supplying green steel in the future. So referring to what some panelists of the panels before have been saying, there's a lot of things going on, many projects going on, and of course also many postponed because of certain circumstances that we will discuss later. But the idea that we have as an off-taker is very clear. We initiated the installation of the so-called direct reduction plant, which is replacing one blast furnace. This direct reduction plant needs 140,000 tons of green hydrogen a year. And we are right now in the process to select the firms that will provide this green hydrogen to us. It's important to understand that, of course, competitiveness in terms of pricing, specifically in terms of transport, we need also to discuss later, is an issue. And that's the reason why, being the goal to get decarbonized, we need for sure also to think about the first steps, as we did in terms of using gas, because already using gas for the DRI would reduce the CO2 emissions at least by between 50 and 60% already. But clearly the transition is going to be gas, but then green hydrogen will come as soon as it is competitive. At the same time, we are a provider of technology, and you know all that we are the selected party for providing the electrolyzer to the largest projects right now in globally, which is the NEOM project, and things are going well. We have really electrolyzers on AWE, so alkali water electrolyzers, which is on the industrial scale with 20 megawatts modules, which makes the whole thing much more efficient than other technologies. So indeed, it is really true. This chicken egg, we are right now basically providing both technology, but also the solutions by off-taking.
And again, so much, I think, to look forward to. You want to follow up on that one? Do that first, and then we'll come back,
yes,
please.
Because what Miguel just said highlights a real dilemma. The dilemma is not hydrogen, yes or no. The dilemma is whether we would use gas as a transition technology in order to install DRI, the direct reduction of iron ore, at the places where you are active, and whether we accept this. And this is the dilemma, because
but at the moment, we sort of have to in many areas.
Well, we have to, but there are the politicians. The politicians say, no.
Yes.
We talked about green hydrogen. You get the money, the taxpayers' money, to install this capacity there in Duisburg, in that case.
They don't understand the transition word.
Well, they understand the transition, but they don't want to know that sometimes you need to accept a reduction of 50 to 60% of CO2 emission with another technology, and they say you risk a lock-in effect. Once you do it, then you possibly have a lock-in for gas. But that's not true. You can have sunset clauses. So this is the real dilemma, that we need to convince policymakers to accept transition periods, to accept transition technologies. We don't have the hydrogen we need in that bulk, in that volume that you just said, right now. We will have it in quite some time. Can I remind everybody that the market penetration of coal globally, 10% took 55 years. Gas, 45 years. Oil, 44 years. So that's the dimension. And we are in year number 4 of the European hydrogen strategy, year number 4. I don't ask for much more time. I just ask for realism and some pragmatism. And that's the real dilemma that some politicians say, I'm elected for 4 years. Hurry up, make it happen green. No.
Yes.
And
They promised green in their agenda, yeah.
They promised green, and we need to also make it affordable, and that's the dilemma.
And I think that's, we have to bring them talking about what government should do. Wataru, talk to me a little bit about what governments can do. In Japan, governments have put some initiatives in place, but, is their role there as an enabler? Should they be working more in the regulatory environment? And I'll come back to you on this one too, because clearly we need the support of governments.
So, of course, the support of the government is very important, but as he mentioned, politicians also have to speak.
They're the problem. We like the
louder.
government. We like the concept,
yes,
but it's the people.
People should understand to go green or to decarbonize, it is expensive. But not spending this money, maybe the earth will be gone. I mean, you cannot live anymore. Human beings will not be able to live anymore. Because when I was a kid, we had no air conditioning at home. Not because my parents were poor, but it was not necessary. But now, without air conditioning, people really died during the night, even in Tokyo. So it's only because global warming. So government should, and also especially politicians and leaders should clearly mention we need to fight against global warming, but it is expensive. Without this word, everybody watching TV or newspapers, this company go green, but it doesn't say who's going to pay. So this part, I think the government should make it very clear, but it's necessary to make this additional payment.
Miguel, again, I think we're not going to sort the government issue today, but we might be able to give them some advice. Do you think anywhere is getting it right, and where do you see the role of the government? Miguel, pick up on this.
Well, first of all, somebody needs to defend the politicians here, right? And I would like to step in here.
What are you doing in your next job? What was it?
He's running.
But I would like to give some examples where politicians are doing the right thing, and of course, nevertheless, we need to be even more guiding them. So a couple of days ago, we got a grant from the European Union as Nucera for technology development on SOEC, right? Mm-hmm. So, this is SOEC, solid oxide electrolyzer cell, and this is an additional technology to get more flexible beyond the industrial scale applications. So there are technology helps. We got a grant in the US for establishing manufacturing a site in the US for electrolyzer manufacturing. So there are a lot of things going on this end. Having said this, and I need to also support what you were saying, obviously the transition needs to be much more taken care of in a realistic way, because yes, we will scale up the production. There will be many projects then being on industrial scale, reducing the cost. Mm-hmm. But there, the main task of the politics should be to provide the right level of infrastructure. Because to give an example, the most efficient way to transport hydrogen is pipeline. It is not the most efficient way to convert it to ammonia and then to transport it on a ship. And although you like that very much, and you are doing this, and then you crack back. I like that as well, because I do ammonia plants and I do ammonia cracker also in my decarb technology segment. But if we look from the cost optimized way, the best is pipeline. And of course, it needs to be the combination between a green electron that is competitive and a green molecule that is very close to the green electron and then transported by pipeline. This infrastructure, this cannot be done by companies. This needs to be done by the countries, the governments. I give you only one additional example for Europe. It is very clear that in Europe, the green electrons, the most competitive ones are on Iberia, so Spain and Portugal, and on the Nordics, which is Sweden and Norway. To put there now a pipeline, this is clear a task of the European Union. And this is, for the time being, missing. This is what we need to task them, because that would really help to scale the whole usage of hydrogen.
And Jorgo, you must, as CEO of Hydrogen Europe, you have some friends in the European Union, or at least some people you're talking to on a regular basis. So what's the feel that you're getting? I mean, where is the understanding, the desire? I mean, and then, we look at what's happening, sadly, in the media, and they're probably worse. The relations with them in terms of anything that's not super green is going to be given a hard time. So they need to understand as well. And I come from that background.
Yeah, let me start with the media. I've seen already 3 articles about this event here, hydrogen-related, that are very, very fact-based and very friendly. So I have nothing to complain about the media. Politicians, they are looking into this. Miguel is right. They are not to blame for everything. We owe the politicians in Europe this strategy that is based on what you just said, the infrastructure. We call it the backbone. So the European hydrogen backbone, which celebrated last week a big success because the German government has launched the so-called core grid, which would connect also your company, but which would connect 10,000 kilometers of pipelines in high industrialized Germany.
And that's a great advancement.
This is super important. Also, the government presented a way how to finance it over generations. And this is smart, because what we are talking here about is a multi-generational approach. We are not, I have 4 daughters. We are not doing it for these daughters only, but also for their children and grandchildren. So you can put the costs on many generations. This is what the government proposed. So it happens. There is one single problem that I have with some European friends. That's the over-complexity. The Europeans always want to describe exactly until the annex how a green molecule has to be produced. So for the non-Europeans in this room, European green hydrogen needs to be produced by electricity that has been produced in the same hour by a windmill that is not older than 24 months and is in the same bidding zone. Yeah. This is crazy, unfortunately.
It's tough. No, it's unrealistic.
It's unrealistic. And that comes from this European idea to be thorough, to be perfect. Doesn't work, especially with nascent technologies. You have to give it a go. And that's what we can learn from, especially from Japan. So Japan was, to be honest, the driver in the very beginning of all this hydrogen economy. This was the country that was the driver, followed a little bit by Korea, we have to admit. And the Europeans, they picked it up. And what did they do? They created this monster of bureaucracy. And we are now in the process. We have a new European Commission starting as of 1st of December. And we are now trying to convince, and I'm very confident, we have a friendly relation to this new Commission, to reduce this burden and to be pragmatic.
Yeah, and I think that'll be welcomed by everybody. And indeed, it'll be welcomed by everyone around the world. Because you look at, I've been at conferences in Asia and other places, and because of the regulations that are happening in Europe, they're all coming on board in terms of how do they go green. So it's having a wider impact.
It's the other way around. Sorry. I was witnessing 2 years ago a conference of my European Commissioner in India, Indian minister, European Commissioner. Commissioner reads out this very, very complicated definition of green hydrogen. Indian minister stands up, takes off his mobile phone, speaks freely 10 minutes about every paragraph of this delegated act.
Don't think about doing that now, but carry on.
No. And criticizes it, and he was absolutely right. He says, why are you shooting yourself in your feet and in your head? The European politician, the commissioner, the lady was furious because she understood he was right. So India, much more informed about European legislation because they want to import into Europe. And they suffer from bidding zone requirements that they don't have. India has a much better power grid than the Europeans. So why should they go for bidding zone? So you see, the rest of the world is much better prepared than the Europeans think. They are not the center of the world anymore. They need to qualify for being the best market. And this is not, is not God-given. Huh? So.
Yeah. And that's where everyone's chasing that European market. Wataru, let's look at the technologies and what, when we think of the technologies that are out there, they're going to really help us because we have to bring the costs down. And I think you've all talked a little bit about that. So talk to me about what's most promising and helps to reduce that in green hydrogen production.
So we have a real project which is under FEED,
Okay.
and we are trying to go FID within the next 12 months. The biggest cost is the power cost, the renewables. And second is electrolyzers. But even you reduce like 10% of electrolyzer, this will not help. The biggest challenge is the power price, which maybe not so many people know about because you have to do a real project. But in any case, the electrolyzer is a key component of the green hydrogen projects. So this now Chinese companies or German companies or European companies are chasing. But we make lots of comparison between European price and Chinese price, and that maybe cheaper is the worst, but it's not true. The Chinese companies are doing very well nowadays. So I think if more people really buy electrolyzer in the future, I think the price will gradually go down. The solar panels, when we first started, was so high. Japanese feed-in tariff was 40 cents, and now it's close to like 5. So in 10 years, it dropped dramatically. Also, wind farms, it was very, offshore wind was like 80 cents, but now we have to achieve like 10 cents to get the job. So we believe two parts, still the renewable parts can still go down, but also the electrolyzer. Technology itself, I think it's not a real high tech. So if more numbers are produced, it will be cheaper. But also the other challenge is the EPC. This is, in common for all power projects or mega projects, because no one is going to wrap the project. That's our head.
And that's a tough one around the world anywhere. Miguel, any chance of an end-of-year sale on electrolyzers right now? How do we actually bring the costs down? And again, please have a look at costs in terms of the infrastructure and all of that that's in place. Every element is a big cost.
Well, first of all, I would like to emphasize there is a third very large element in cost, which is actually number 2, which is the transport.
Yes.
As long as we don't have pipelines, everything what needs to be done to convert and reconvert, this is the second largest piece of the cost. So what we really need to work on is first around 43 to 50% is indeed the green electron, and around 20 to 30% might be the transport, depending on how it is transported. How to bring the electrolyzer cost down? First of all, we need to take into account that we place already today our manufacturing locations where we have already competitive costs. Of course, we need also to take into account that there is no dependency on one country only. So we have to take into account that we have an independence in order to flexibility in order to ramp the production up. And of course, it's of utmost important to have standardization and modularization taking place. And that's the reason why we are doing in Australia this 20 megawatt modules, which are far more competitive than the PEM applications. And again, as said before, technology evolves. Sometimes you don't need the industrial scale. You need to be more flexible. You need to be more distributed. And that's the reason why we are building now on SOEC. Again, local manufacturing will play a role. On the other hand, that doesn't mean necessarily that the cost will go down, because if you go to a place, for example, in the US, where we have the need for local manufacturing, then we need to accept that costs might be a little bit higher compared to our places in Vietnam or in Spain or other places. So it's a combination of flexibility, of course, scaling up, cost reduction through standardization and modularization.
Please, go ahead.
So about transportation, the easiest way is to transport by ship, but however, you have to liquefy the hydrogen. LNG minus 161 degree or 2 degrees, hydrogen minus 262, which you need, real new technology. And we are now conducting FEED for this Australian project. But if we liquefy in order to transport to Asia by ship, this liquefaction part will be extremely expensive. So this technology, if somebody can make a real good proposal, I think the price level will go down. And also the vessel which carries liquid hydrogen, also will be much expensive than the existing LNG vessels. So this part also we have to challenge.
And again, we have to look at what ships, the fuel is going to be transported on.
Yes.
That's where another dilemma comes. You may get your green hydrogen, but it may have been shipped over in a ship with a less than green fuel right now, because that's just the way it is. Jorgo, talk to us a little bit about more of the choking points that are, there in terms of regulation and what's hindering the market, and also the Renewable Energy Directive. The version 3 is happening, and will this come with the new group of people that we're going to meet in European Union, or what's happening there? How can we see our way through it?
After the European Hydrogen Strategy was established, we had a year of four very, very intensive years of legislation. 3,000 pages, 1,000 mentionings of hydrogen in the so-called Fit for 55 regulation. So there are a lot of complex things, complex ideas, one of which is to oblige off-takers in industry, especially in the fertilizer industry, in the steel industry, not so much in the refinery industry, to off-take 42% of the hydrogen they need needs to be green. It's a good idea. It's fantastic. We are very proud to have done it. Problem is, first of all, it needs to be put into national law. So some member states, take Germany, Miguel has to fight with his government or to work with his government. Germany would love to oblige him. But if he's obliged to take 42% of renewable, of green hydrogen, which is much more expensive, he might say, that's not profitable, that's not good. And that's the problem. We have an issue with all the industries that are at risk. Fertilizer companies close down in Germany and in Europe in general. Steel companies are under pressure. We will see what happens. So that is why we need to find a way to combine both the obligation to green the offtake and at the same time a de-risking strategy. One idea might be to pay so-called contracts for difference, so where the government takes a part of the risk and says for some years we cover the extra cost. It cannot be all the cost. Another part needs to come from cheap producers. So cheap producers say, okay, we can bring down the cost, we can basically privately subsidize the cost, but we want to have you as a long-term client, not 1 year, 2 years, 20 years. We just saw a big 30-year offtake agreement between the Adani Group in India and Yara, the biggest fertilizer company in the world. 30 years. This is the way we need to go, because then the producers can bring down the cost, and this is what we need. But still, some governments doubt whether they can afford the climate contract for difference. There's one little issue I would like to mention. That's we need to think. You heard about transport. Transport is a big issue. We need to understand that embedded hydrogen is also a form to transport it. So ammonia is already embedded into a product that is easy to transport. Hot briquetted iron ore. So you can easily transport this. It's the same process as to transport iron ore. So we need to understand that it's better to bring the process of using hydrogen close to the production, to the cheap production of hydrogen. So Europeans will lose 1/3 of their productivity, of their jobs, of their value chain, but 2/3 might stay if they act now. If they act slow, they even use this support of the processed hydrogen in briquetted iron ore, and then they are out. So this is what I see now. We need to be a little bit smart and act fast.
And leading on after that, I mean, we look at, I suppose, the demand. Clearly, Miguel, in the steel sector, that I think is one that we can see clearly. Aviation sector has been talked about, but a lot of uncertainty there. Where do you see demand, Miguel? Where do you see it, and how fast to pick up?
Hard to abate industries. I mean, this is something that from a government point of view should have been even more focused on, to say, indeed, we need to go for CO2 reduction. CO2 emission reduction is steel 6 to 7% worldwide, aluminium more or less the same, chemicals more or less the same, cement more or less the same, and the whole thing of shipping, and of course then also truck emissions. So if we would concentrate on these 5, we would solve a lot of the CO2 emissions much faster than to go for everything and anything. You know, focus is of importance, and of course, in specifically what you just mentioned in terms of the steel, of course we need to think about not to replace all the blast furnaces at where they are today, but also have a different kind of value add structure in order to be competitive, but also having an earlier advantage by doing the hard to abate processes where the green electron and the green molecules are cheap. This is also a very, very important question that we need to deal with specifically indeed in Europe, because there's where this is most disadvantageous right now.
Wataru, quickly talk to me just, you know, as a trading house that covers the whole supply chain, what do you see as top of the agenda?
So actually, all of the supply chain, this is top of the agenda. Each and every segment of the supply chain, it's a real chicken egg situation. Just to do one
they
part
love the chicken and egg on this panel here. I think they've all had a go at the chicken and egg.
Chicken and egg we need to solve, and but in any case, as owner or operator of the future green hydrogen project, I think one organization should cover the whole supply chain from the renewables up to the final supply, because you have to control the whole cost of the project. So especially Marubeni, we are going to build a 1 gigawatt of onshore wind project here. The cost of the power is 1.56 cents, very cheap. So with this capability, I think we can start from renewable part, and also production, and also transportation, and also we can also use as a off-taker as well. So we should cover the whole
Keep your eyes on everything. We have to start wrapping this up. Jorgo, let me start with you. I'll come to you. Don't worry. I'm going to save you to the end. All right. Jorgo, talk to me about what's urgent, what's essential. A call to action, I suppose, to the industry out there. What do we need to do?
I think, first of all, get a lot of green renewable energy, because we will drive hydrogen fast, but we will not have enough electricity that is green. Many projects are delayed right now, specifically in Europe. So I would like to put the focus now on green energy development faster, because this is the main ingredient for the hydrogen economy.
Yeah, and I think around the world people need to realize that it's not just about providing local power or whatever. It's a much bigger picture on that. Wataru.
So I wait for a request for quotation for your green power. We are ready to supply.
Okay.
My sense is this is a big challenge, and I think one organization cannot do it alone. So my sense is let's share the challenge for the green hydrogen in the future.
And you're Jorgo, not Miguel. I'm mixing the two of you up here. Okay, I'm back with you. Close us off and tell us, just you're talking to your members, you're talking to your people, all of the associations, everybody involved. The big call to action, and where you just look at this, maybe frustrated sometimes, and say what we can do now and really move this forward.
De-risk the off-takers. That's the most important thing, because the rest is on the go. But also, stop thinking about electricity is the thing. It is the thing, but when I see at the country I know best, Germany, last year we had curtailment costs and grid congestion costs of 11 billion. For this year, 18 billion. This is money thrown out of the window. If you don't combine it with the smart use of molecules that can store this energy, like hydrogen, you are lost. And this is why we need to think integrated. This is why we're here. It's a good start.
Super. Okay, well, it's a good start from all of you. Thank you so much. A lot of great ideas there. We might not solve the whole world's problems today, but we have good ideas to get it moving. I want to thank you, our dear audience, for joining us too. And again, to our dear panel here, Jorgo, thank you so much. Wataru and Miguel. Thank you so much, gentlemen.